All right. Good morning. Morning. How's everyone doing? Karibuni sana. Hope everyone is doing well this beautiful 14th day of November, the year of our Lord 2024, from wherever it is that you're joining us from. We're really glad that you could make the time to be here with us. So for the sake of guys who are new here, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex, like we always say, is not a one-man show. So it's a team of traders or a group of traders that do trade together and also show people how to go about it on the charts. That's the best we can do. Unfortunately, we can't trade on your behalf. So we're here with Mitch. Of course, if we do have any questions, feel free to ask them on the chat box. He will be responding back to you, but I will also be trying to see whether I can respond towards the tail end of this webinar. But as always, don't really wait until the very end. You still can ask your questions even as the session does end up progressing on. So we're going to jump straight into it. So we'll start off by looking at the watch list as always. That's where we always start. So you can see the watch list right there, 14th of November, 2024. So you can see we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on the US dollar, the Canadian dollar, and the Great British Pound, mixing and matching that up with everything on the sell side. You can see yesterday what the watch list was looking like. So just one thing that has shifted sides, that's the New Zealand dollar. Of course, switching side to the Great British Pound. So we'll have a look at the ones that we did have yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list, and we'll see what we can end up learning from them. So the first one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. You can clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere here. So we either wanted to see price come back in within there or possibly breach to the downside. And maybe we did get the market pulling back in within here, just like he had illustrated, then maybe we would have looked for some selling opportunities. So the market did break to the downside. You can see that it did actually pull back in within this region right here. This was more or less much later on. Of course, not really the best of pullbacks, but you can see that the market came back in, tapped within there. And you can see that the sellers really slowed down. It's only today during the Asian session that they're trying to make a go for it. But unfortunately, not really a currency pair that we'll be trying to see whether we can get some trading opportunities today. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. So the price was somewhere here. Fortunately, we couldn't get the market pulling back in within here well, although it did come back in much later on. If you do look at the time, this was at exactly 4. This is during the US session open, and you can see that the market just came back in, tapped within here. Unfortunately, it's not really a move that you would have really gotten ready in terms of looking for the buying opportunities, because the market just tapped here and immediately took off to the upside, just came shy of this area. Seems like there was some sort of an SNR within there. And you can see that from there, the market really tanked to the downside quite aggressively. So this one, a bit of a tricky situation yesterday, but unfortunately not really a currency pair. We will be trying to see whether we can get some trades today. And also considering the fact that the New Zealand dollar pairs yesterday did start to show a lot of weakness, and of course also moving into the Asian session today, you will definitely see that that's still the case, and that's the reason why we have shifted it to the sell side of things. So the next one, this is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. For this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three areas that Mitch had pointed out. Of course, somewhere within here, also an extra level there just to watch out for. So in the morning, price was here. It wasn't a good time to look for the sells. Just needed to be patient, and you can see that the market came back in within some sort of a seller's region. And if you look at the times, that was at exactly 4 during the US session open, and you can see that the market did actually come to the downside quite fast, just tapped within here. I mean, if you got the sell coming down, you definitely did need to manage your trade quite fast before the market turned around, and you can see that the market went to the upside. So that one only gave one opportunity, but unfortunately, not really a currency pair. We will be trying to see whether we can trade today. And of course, I mean, would have expected the market to possibly continue making, lower lows and lower highs, not just that one move coming down. So bit of a tricky one, but one opportunity, and I guess that was it for that one. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Can clearly see the three areas that Mitch had pointed out. and an illustration, what to expect. Of course, we wanted to see the market break above here and hold above here for us to look for the buys. The market just broke and sat on this level. Really wasn't the best of times to look for the trades. We always say we want to see the market really break above or past a certain region quite aggressively, really move to the upside, then maybe come back in properly and give us a pullback that you can actually end up reading. So this one just broke and sat on this level. This type of things most of the times end up being some sort of traps. So make sure that you don't fall for them on the chart. So if you're going to be taking them, just make sure that you're also quite careful on how you end up going about them. So for this one, unfortunately, the market didn't really move to the upside. It came down aggressively. Fortunately, we couldn't get the buyers really pushing the market off this area. You can see that they really struggled. And of course, moving into today, seems like they're still struggling. So we'll be walking away from that one for today. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. So you can't see the three areas that Mitch had pointed out. The morning price was here. Wanted to see the price come back in within here, possibly to look for some sells. Unfortunately, the market continued coming down, really bounced off this area to the upside. Couldn't really get anything to tell us to look for sells here. You can see that the market has continued to move to the upside, just sitting above that region there. So fortunately, not really a currency pair that we will be focusing on for today. And last but not least, we do have the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sells. You can see the previous day, the sellers had come in quite aggressively, some sort of a hold that was happening here. Just wanted to see if we could at least, have gotten the pullback coming back in within here, to possibly try and see whether we could have gotten some sells. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. You can see that the market just fooled around within that region at the bottom right there. So unfortunately, we couldn't quite get anything on that one. So let's look at a couple of screenshots that we did get. There weren't that many, but we're still grateful. So this one is from Bravin. So as always, Bravin, we know that you love trading silver. So I can see that you got some two good selling opportunities on silver, which is good. So somewhere within here, we got them on the pullbacks within this region, and this was really good. I can see that this is on the 30-minute time frame. So definitely reading the story on a smaller time frame, getting those really, really good sells coming in. And of course, I can see that your stop losses for both trades already below your point of entry. And of course, doesn't matter where you're targeting, as long as at least you've managed the trades, then you should be good. So shout out to you for that, Bravin. And of course, keep up the good work. We're always happy to see your screenshots here. So we also did get some two screenshots from Caroline Kisini. So good to see you killing it on the chat. So this is on gold. So I can see that you also did end up getting two trades on gold, two sells, one high up within that region there, which was quite a good one. Another addition somewhere within that region. And of course, as the market started to calm down, stop losses somewhere within this region here, and I can see that you're targeting down within that area. So this was really well done. So shout out to you for that, Caroline. And of course, I can see that you also did get the US dollar against the Japanese yen. Two good buys within there, somewhere within down here. This one that was a really, really good one. So quite a sniper entry there. And of course, somewhere within this region here, maybe just reading the story on a smaller time frame based on what happened within there. And I can't see that. I think the stop losses for both trades are somewhere within there. And I can't see that you're just targeting higher within that region there. So shout out to you for that, Caroline and Bravin. Always happy to see you killing it on the charts. Of course, you guys are snipers. So good to see you guys really getting even those really, really good entries on the charts. We're proud of you. And of course, we're always happy to see your progress. So remember, guys, if we do get any screenshots, whether good or bad, feel free to send them in to us. Contact details are right there on the video description. You can send them in to us via WhatsApp. We'd be more than happy to see what you guys are up to. We only have a couple more sessions, before we are not gonna be here. So feel free to send in your screenshots, at least if you want to be counted amongst the number. So shifting gears into matters today. So you can see the watch list right there. So for the guys who are just joining us, karibuni sana. This is what the plan is gonna be looking like today. So we're gonna start off with the USD pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. Then we're gonna move on to the Canadian dollar pairs, the Great British Pound pairs, and then we'll finish off with the indices and the commodities as always. So the first one, this is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three areas right there that Mitch had pointed out. So in the morning, price was here. So it was either the market to break above, hold, pull back in within this region, and we look for the buys, or the market possibly coming back in within here. And you can't see that the market pulled back in. And this was during the London session. Then during the US session, you can't see that the market came back in at around 5:30 or thereabouts. The market was back within this region of support right here. And you can't see that the market did actually take off to the upside. I think it was also something to do with the CPIs that came in yesterday, and that really started, getting the market to move to the upside, broke above here, pulled back in within this region, and you can't see that the market has continued to move to the upside, even during the Asian session. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So of course, right now we're more or less within some region of resistance. Isn't really the best time to, to look for your buying opportunities. Let's see if we can get the market pulling back in. Hopefully somewhere as close as possible within here. There are a number of scenarios within this region as well. But at least if we can get the market somewhere as close as possible within here, maybe during the London session, get that pullback coming in, and hopefully not, the sellers really coming in aggressive, because if they do come in aggressive, then we'll have a problem on our hands. But at least if we get a nice slow pullback, maybe coming back in, and we get the market somewhere within here at around 5:30, then that could be good. Could get some buying opportunities there. But also let's try see. I mean, if the market doesn't pull back in, then we'll have to wait and see if we can get the market breaking above here on the pullback. Then we could try and see whether we could get some more conservative buying opportunities. So do watch out for that one. But of course, also watch out for this region at the bottom right here. I mean, if the market needs that price, then at least we should also be ready for that as well. So the next one, this is the euro against the US dollar. For this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that had been pointed out. So in the morning, price was here. Wanted to see the price come back in within this region, and it did. Can't see that during the London session, it bounced off this area, came up, tapped within this region right here. I think once the CPIs came out, you can't see that the strength on the USD really showed up, and the market really started its move coming to the downside. But after those sellers came in, you can see that they've really slowed down. Maybe they might need some sort of a pullback before they do end up activating their sells once again. So we'll be keeping our eyes locked on that region in the middle. So we'll be trying to see whether at least we can get the market coming back in within there. At least if we do get the market coming back, but even if it's somewhat close, within this region, it doesn't necessarily have to come in within that area. Sometimes the market comes within regions, plus or minus a couple of pips. But generally, we do know that within that region, that's where we should be trying to see whether we can get ourselves. So let's see if we can get that happening. At least if that happens, I think there could be some good selling opportunities that could be coming up within there. And of course, hopefully, once the market taps within here, hopefully we could get these sellers showing up once again, and we could get a nice move coming to the downside. So let's see what happens on this one. But of course, right now, give the buyers the benefit of doubt. There's some sort of a support region down within here. And as much as it looks like it's hanging, but on the bigger time frame, there's a level somewhere here. So we've more or less approached a region where we do have buyers. So in terms of the sells, might not really be the best time to look for one. Let's wait and see if we can get the market either breaching to the downside of this region and we could get the sells, or maybe if we do get the pullback coming in within there, then at least we could try and see whether we could get some proper selling opportunities. So the next one is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities, and you can see the three regions right there that had been pointed out. So in the morning, price was here. Wanted to see the market break above and hold, maybe even some attempts to break to the downside, and maybe the market still coming back up would have been valid in terms of looking for the buys. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, because you can see that the market broke to the downside and actually held to the downside of this region. And after that, the market came down, and you can see that the market actually came back in within this region here, which was also one of the areas that we're watching out for. And from there, of course, you can see that the market really took off to the upside quite aggressively. Something similar to what we've seen on the US dollar against the Swiss franc, but also something that's similar with the rest of the USDs. Once those CPIs came out, the strength of the USDs really came in, and it's quite evident on all the USD pairs. So for this one, let's see what happens. And of course, shout out to Caroline Kisini, of course, once again, for getting the buying opportunity on this one. I mean, if you're still hanging on to it, then well and good. But of course, today definitely looking to see, whether we can get more buying opportunities on this one. So let's see what happens. Right now, we're within a seller's region. If we can actually break above this region to the upside, we could look for buys. But there's a possibility we could get a pullback coming in, maybe somewhere within here, somewhere within this region. But generally, we need to see some sort of a pullback coming in. Once we do see the sellers struggling and the buyers really now starting to come in, then we can definitely try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities on this one. So let's watch out for those three areas right there. Those are going to be the areas of interest for us today. And of course, remember the red SNR at the bottom. In case the market finds its way, back in within that region, then definitely we can also try and see whether we can get some buying opportunities within that red SNR. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sells. Can't clearly see the three areas right there. So in the morning, price was here. So we wanted to either see the market break beneath here, and you can see that there was a strong support region within here, and the sellers really had to fight hard, to actually break this level. It only had to take the CPIs, to break this region to the downside. So you can see that the market just almost stuck within this region right here before the market really tanked to the downside quite aggressively. And you can see that within this region, the market started to slow down, but still during the Asian session, still attempting to move to the downside. So for this one for today, these are the three areas of interest for us. So we'll be trying to see whether we can get some pullbacks coming in. In terms of looking for the buys right now, that's not really the best of ideas. We do have a support region. You can see that the buyers are also starting to react within this area here. So you could easily find that maybe during the London session, we could be on the pullback phase. And ideally, if that happens, you could find the market back in within that region, somewhere within here, maybe at around 5:30, and that could give us some proper selling opportunities. So let's wait and see what happens. Alternatively, we do breach beneath this region to the downside. Still will need to end up waiting for the pullback. So watch out for that, but also watch out for the region at the top. It's a bit of a long shot, but you never know. Maybe the market might actually end up coming back in within there. If it does, then at least we should also be ready for that as well. So last but not least, for the USD pairs, we do have the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, this is a new entrant on our watch list. We will be trying to see whether we can get some sells. There's a lot of weakness that's coming in on the New Zealand dollar pairs. Could be something, maybe just trying to follow what the Australian dollar pairs are doing, because they were showing weakness from earlier in the week. So maybe the New Zealand dollar is also following. Nothing really fundamental per se, but I guess when you end up looking across the board on all the NZDs, you can see that weakness coming in. So that definitely tells us that the big boys are definitely looking to dump the New Zealand dollar. And that's the reason why we've shifted our bias on it. So for this one, let's see what happens. These are the three areas we will be watching out for. Hopefully, maybe we might just get the market coming back in somewhere within these regions here, but at least somewhere as close as possible within there. If we do, then we could look for the selling opportunities. But if not, and we get the market really breaking to the downside of this region and on the pullback, then we could possibly end up looking, for some more conservative selling opportunities at that point in time. So do watch out for that. Also remember the red SNR. I mean, if the market comes back in within there, like I keep on pointing out, then at least you also should be ready for that as well. So that's pretty much it for the USD pairs. So we're going to move on to the Canadian dollar pairs. So we're going to do the same, mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. You can clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. In the morning, price was here. Wanted to see the market pull back in somewhere within here. It came in so close within this area right here. And you can see that this was at around 5:30 or thereabout during the New York Stock Exchange open. And you can see that from there, the market went to the upside. And after that, just continued hanging around within this region right here, where it was hanging around for most of, or the earlier part of yesterday, moving into today. So for this one, these are the same three areas that we're going to be watching out for. I mean, since the market has not really gone far and beyond the areas that we're watching out for yesterday, the story is still the same. No levels have been broken. Right now, the market looks like it's just sitting above this area right here. So we will be waiting to see a bit more of the story before we can actually end up executing buys. I would advise you not to possibly end up looking for buys right now. I mean, it's quite obvious, especially when the market breaks and holds above a certain region, and it gives traders across the globe, so much time to actually see that support is holding. You can only imagine the number of people that are actually hitting buys within here. Hundreds of millions of traders, of course, their stops within this region. When you could find that the market might just spike, stop them out. Maybe some of them might start to look for selling opportunities only for the market to come back up within this region here. And you could find that that's when the buying opportunities might actually end up taking place. So there could be that sort of a trap that could easily end up happening there. So that's one scenario. The other scenario, and that's the reason why we have this region here, is because the market also seems like, to some extent, maybe it has started to turn into some sort of a range. It's not really the perfect range, because to some extent, it still looks like it's an upward channel. But you could find that maybe when the market comes back in within here, especially if it holds beneath this region to the downside, there's a possibility we still could get the market coming back in within here. And you could find that some proper buying opportunities, might be happening off that area there. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But of course, remember the red SNR at the bottom. That's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our aggressive buying opportunities. So the next one, this is the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three areas right there. And the morning price was here. So I wanted to see whether we could have gotten the market maybe pulling back in within this region here, maybe read a bit more of the story within there, because it didn't seem like the big sellers had showed up within this area here. But you can see that the market came to the downside. The buyers came in. Unfortunately, there was nothing to tell us to look for the sells there. The market went up a bit high, and you can see that some sort of a fight did end up ensuing, within this region right here before the sellers really showed up and pushed the market to the downside quite aggressively. So this one, unless you're reading the story there on a smaller time frame, I mean, reading it on this time frame has been a bit difficult in terms of getting the entry. So in as much as the market came to the downside, timing the entry was a whole different story. So for this one, the levels are the same. So the market is back in within here. Right now, we've just gotten some sort of pullback, let's say from yesterday, after the market came down, and the market is just hanging around, within this area here. So maybe we could get the market maybe attempting to come up a bit high. It might just need to tap in maybe somewhere within this region here or somewhere here, maybe to activate, those sellers to really start coming in. Definitely, if you see the market start like this, then there's a possibility. Lots of traders are also trying to see whether they can get selling opportunities, within this area here. So maybe to break the tie, we might just need the market to come back up within that region there, and hopefully we could get, these sellers maybe attempting to come back down again. So let's see if we could get something like that. But of course, if we do break and start to move away from this region right here on the pullback, you can still end up getting the proper selling opportunities. And I mean, for those ones, you can actually be a bit more confident about them compared to possibly trying to get the sales right now. And you can see that there's a crazy fight, that's going on with the buyers and the sellers within that region there. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. These are the three areas that had been pointed out. In the morning, price was here. Wanted to see the pullback, possibly read it and see the big boys showing up. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The sellers pushed the market to the downside. And you can see that this was during the US session. The market just tapped back in within here at exactly 5:30. You can see that the market was back in within this region and it took off to the upside. And it has continued its sequence of higher highs and higher lows into the Asian session. So for this one, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully we can get the market pulling back in. And it seems like the pullback is just starting to happen. So let's hope that we can get this pullback coming in within this region here. If we do, and maybe the market sets itself up during the London session, then during the US session, if it's back within here, then we could try and see whether we could get some proper buying opportunities. So do watch out for that. So remember the red SNR, that's going to be the last area where we will be calling it quits in terms of looking for buying opportunities. So watch out for that as well. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sells. So you can see the three areas that had been mapped out. In the morning, price was here. Wanted to see the price come back in within here. And you can see, unfortunately, the market just came slightly lower, then came down, spiked up, almost just came shy of this area right here that had been pointed out. And after that, you can see that the market did actually continue moving to the downside quite aggressively. So for this one, for today, yesterday was a tricky one in terms of grabbing the sell on this one. Let's see if we can get something a bit more clearer on this one today. So right now, we're more or less within a support region. Not really the best of ideas to look for a selling opportunity right now. Maybe, hopefully, we could get the market pulling back in and we see some sellers, or rather some buyers coming in, and hopefully they get faded somewhere as close as possible within here. Then we could possibly try and see whether we could get some proper selling opportunities within that region there. So I'm hoping it does something like that. But of course, if it breaks to the downside, then on the pullback, then we could try and see whether we could get some sells within there. So also remember the red SNR at the top, although the Australian dollar pairs and the New Zealand dollar pairs are showing a lot of weakness. In terms of those deep pullbacks coming in, it's highly unlikely that we'd get that, like the market coming back in within this region, or even for the previous one. But like I always keep on pointing out, it's always good to have that option open in case it does end up happening, then at least you will be ready for that. So for this one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So we will be trying to see whether we can get selling opportunities on this one. This is a new entrant on our watch list. So we're just coming off a region of support. It seems like the buyers are just gearing up to come in. Let's see if they do come in during the London session. If we get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this region here, there are a number of SNRs within this area here. But of course, we want to get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. There was some sort of an SNR that the market broke to the downside within here, especially on the bigger time frame. So we're expecting maybe to get some sort of a retest within that area. And of course, if we do, then at least we could possibly try and see whether we could get sales within that area. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the red SNR. Remember to watch out for the times, like we do keep on pointing out. So we have 11, which is the London market open, 4 p.m. East African time, that is. That's going to be the US session open, and 5:30, which is the New York Stock Exchange open. So even if your timing is not really that great, at least if you do focus on those times, then at least there's a possibility you could get some good trading opportunities within them. And of course, remember, if the market is within a region of support, or resistance within those times, there's a high probability that the market could actually be pushing itself off those areas. So at least you could also end up trying to watch out for that. And I think by doing that, you're definitely moving in the right direction, even as you're working on your trading. So we're going to move on to the GBP pairs, which are more or less pretty new. So we'll run through them very fast. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the 3 areas that we will be watching out for. So let's see what happens. The market could either break above here to the upside. And of course, if it does, let it break, come back in within here, struggle, and you could possibly find that the market could do something like that. If it does, and we get this sort of a setup happening, then at least you could look for the buys, especially if the market is back here within, the times that we keep on pointing out, like a broken record, then you could find some good buying opportunity there. But right now, also give these sellers the benefit of doubt. And the reason why you should be waiting for the breach to the upside is because you're also not aware of what these sellers within this region are up to. You could easily hit the buy here only to actually end up getting stopped out. And you could easily end up getting taken back all the way till within this region here. And you could find that, the proper buying opportunities might actually end up happening off this region here. So let's wait and see what happens on this one. So watch out for those 3 areas. Remember the red SNR. That's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our aggressive buying opportunities. So the next one, this is the euro against the Great British Pound. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. And for this one, we will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. For the sake of guys who are new to trading, the reason why we're looking for sales on this one is because the Great British Pound is the counter currency pair. So it's to the right, it's not to the left like for the others. So when we're buying the others, for this one, we need to sell. By doing so, we're selling the euro, but alternatively or simultaneously buying the Great British Pound. And that's exactly what we should be doing. So watch out for these 3 areas right here. Let's see if we can get the market pulling back in within this region. If we do, and I'm hoping the market does, then I think we could get some good selling opportunities within this area here, but also watch out for the region at the top. And of course, you will need to do some money management when you come back in within this region. You could easily find the market bouncing off this region right here. So watch out for that. And of course, no matter what you do, make sure that you trade with a stop loss at all times and stick within your risk parameters. No matter how good a setup looks, just make sure that you don't over risk. You could easily end up getting sent home. So just make sure that you really watch out for your risk always. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against Japanese yen. So for this one, new entrant, we're going to be watching out for buys. These are the three areas we will be watching out for. The market just seems to be holding above here, but I think we'll need to see a bit more, especially if we do see how the sellers end up reacting, because I don't think we've really broken free of these sellers who are sitting within here. But hopefully they do end up giving us a last attempt, and they do attempt to break to the downside and maybe come head on with these buyers right here, and the market gets pushed to the upside. We could possibly try and see whether we could get some proper buying opportunities. So do watch out for that. And of course, in case you get the buys here, then definitely make sure that you manage your trade within this region right here. But also on the other hand, you can't see that the market is just attempting to break out of this range, which means that the breach, in as much as it's sitting here, it's not fully confirmed yet. Because if the market comes to the downside and holds beneath here, then there's a high probability we could get the market coming back in within this region right here. And I mean, if we're back in the range, the best area for you to look for your buying opportunities is always at the bottom of the range. So just make sure that you really watch out for this region. But of course, in case the market breaks to the downside and we get a breach of structure to the downside, I mean, we're already out of that range at that point in time. Any buying opportunities that you look out for after that, those ones, I think you will need the hand of God to really help you in terms of making them work. So just make sure that you watch out for that red SNR at the bottom right there. So moving on into the next one. This is the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant, we'll be trying to see whether we can get that GBP strength coming in. Already it has started coming in, although this is also a lot of weakness on the AUDs, and that's the reason why you can't see that this one has moved up quite far compared to the others. But right now it seems like the market is breaking to the upside, so we'll need to see a bit more of what does end up happening here. So hopefully either the market moves to the upside, comes back in within here, and we could get some proper buying opportunities, or maybe we do see attempts, by the buyers to actually, by the sellers rather, to actually break this region to the downside, and they actually end up being unsuccessful. Then we could try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities within that. But there's also a possibility we could get the market coming back in within here, and also somewhere within here, although this one is a bit of a long shot, especially considering the fact that the AUDs and the NZDs are showing a lot of weakness. But I mean, in case the market and the big boys do need that price, just be ready for it, so that at least you don't actually end up getting surprised. So last but not least, for the currency pairs, we do have the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sells. So in the morning, yesterday price was here. Wanted to see the price break beneath this region to the downside and hold for us to look for the sells. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And also price coming back in within here, maybe to look for some sells. Also, that didn't happen. And you can see that the weakness on the New Zealand dollar really came in. It makes the GBP look quite strong, but that wasn't really the case. So you can see that also moving into the Asian session, this one is still moving up higher and higher. So we will be waiting to see whether we can get that pullback coming in. It seems like the buyers are running out of steam. So maybe it might be time for some sellers to actually end up getting invited to the party, just to get things fired up. So hopefully we do get the pullback coming in, maybe, and I'm really hoping it comes in somewhere as close as possible within here. If the New Zealand dollar can at least end up getting some strength, I think some good buying opportunities could be here. But of course, in case that doesn't happen, then we'll have to wait and see whether we can get the market breaking above this region to the upside. You could find that also maybe even the big boys, they just could be hiding their cards, and keeping their cards so close to their chest. You don't really know what they're doing, but at least if they do show up when the market goes to the upside on the pullback, you still can end up getting the buys within this region right here. So you just need to be patient. But of course, since you're not quite sure what the big boys are up to, for this one, patience needs to be exercised. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs. So hopefully for the guys who are joining us a bit late, hopefully you can end up taking note of that. So we're going to move on to the indices and the commodities. You can see that there isn't any change on that front. So we're going to start off with the NAS 100. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three areas right there that had been pointed out. So in the morning, price was here, it came down. So it was either the market to actually break to the upside, then hold within here for us to look for the buys, or if it actually came in and held within this region, we could have looked for the sells. So you can see that the market actually probed within this area, came down, bounced off this region, and you can see that at exactly 4, which is during the US session open, the market actually took off to the upside, came back in within that region, but the sellers retaliated quite aggressively, pushed the market to the downside. At one point, it seemed like the market was holding beneath here, but you can see that the buyers still retaliated. So there's some sort of range to some extent. It's not a perfect range, but generally you can see that there are sellers here and buyers somewhere within this region right here who are holding. And you can see that there's a serious fight that's going on between the two. So for this one, right now we're still maintaining in terms of looking for the buying opportunities, although it's a bit of a tricky situation, this one, because we'll need to see a bit more in terms of the story, before we actually end up making or determining which way to go with it. Because right now the market just seems like it's breaking to the downside. But of course, considering the fact that this is not a strong breach, and in any case, the market has been down within these regions before, and the buyers have still reacted. So if we do get the market still coming back into the upside of this area, then I guess we could possibly end up looking for some buying opportunities there. But I think in terms of the sells, we'll definitely need to first see the market maybe tap back in within this region here. If we get the market coming back in within here and holds to the downside, then at least at that point in time, I think sells possibly could be valid. So the story is the same. It's more or less the same as what we were watching out for yesterday. But considering the fact that we're in a range and we're at the bottom of the range, you need to be very careful, especially if you're going to be looking for the sells. I think even the best selling opportunities could possibly come in, especially if we break free of this region to the downside. I think the sells beneath here might actually be better than actually looking for the sells within this area. But of course, just watch out for this region right here. I mean, right now the bus is still to look for the buys, but like I'm pointing out, we definitely do need more confirmation. So just because I'm saying that we're looking for buys and we're at the bottom of the range doesn't mean that you should just jump in on the buys. Remember, we also need to first see that the big boys are actually interested. You can't see that the sellers are slowing down, but we also need to see a sign of the big buyers, showing up within that region there before we can actually jump in on the buys. So let's see what happens on that one. So the next one, this is the Dow Jones. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three areas and also an illustration or illustrations of what to expect. So price was here. Wanted to see price come back in within here and possibly try and see whether we could get sells. Unfortunately, the market couldn't break free of this region. And you can see that the market came up. There was even some sort of a gap that happened. And I think this was when the CPIs came out, that quick move coming up within there. Then you can see that the market came down off this region that we had right there quite fast, tapped back in within this region here. But you can see that the buyers retaliated and pushed the market a bit further up, back within this region where we do have some sort of sellers. And those are the sellers who are more or less holding the market moving into today. So for this one, the buyers is still to look for sells. Remember that for as long as we're holding beneath the red SNR, the buyers is to try see whether we can get some selling opportunities. If you do end up getting some buys, it's okay, but just be well aware at the back of your mind that the buying opportunities that you're getting are counters and the sellers can actually show up at any given point in time without any warning. So for this one, let's see if we can get the market coming back in within here. There's a possibility it could, especially considering how the buyers went up here and the sellers came down quite aggressive. The buyers seem to be somehow struggling within here, but let's see if we can get that last push coming up, and hopefully we could get the market coming down, maybe even attempting to come as low, and possibly, for the sellers really trying to reach their previous record, which is currently down within these regions right here. So let's see what happens, but I think some good sells might possibly be happening within this region in the middle there. But like we always keep on pointing out, the indices and the commodities always tend to move a lot, especially during the US session. So if we don't really get anything moving during the London session, then at least just be a bit more understanding and wait for the US session and see what does end up happening. Because you also could find that maybe during the London session, the market could be setting itself up. Then during the US session, that's when the big boys are really going to kick in, and you could possibly end up getting that move happening, or the sell move happening during the US session. So the next one, this is silver. So for silver, yesterday the bus was to try to see whether we could get sells. For as long as we're holding, I think beneath this region right here, the bus was to try to see whether we could get sells. This was where the red SNR was. So in the morning, price was here. We wanted to see more of the story within this region here. And you can see that the market pulled around within this area, even an attempt to break to the upside. Price came back in. Though this one was a bit tricky, you did need the smaller time frame to possibly read the story. And you can see that the market came down, pulled back in, even within this region right here, and the market did actually continue moving to the downside. So shout out to Bravin, also in terms of getting the selling opportunity on this one. If you're still hanging on, that's really well done. So for this one, for today, the bus is still to try to see whether we could get sells. So these are the three areas that we're watching out for. Remember that for as long as we're holding beneath here, the bus is to try to see whether we could get sells. The market is coming down. Don't really end up chasing the sells. Definitely lots of traders are looking at this move coming down. And I can only imagine, the millions of traders across the world who are hitting sells when the market is down within this area right here. So don't actually end up jumping in on the sells now. Even if this market is coming down, it's okay, let it go down. When you end up getting the pullback coming in, it might come back in within there or somewhere within there. At least always try to see whether you can get some sort of discounts on the charts. So, and I mean, this is the safer way to trade as opposed to hitting the sell within here. So watch out for that. Also, on the other hand, I mean, you could get the market coming back in within this region. Definitely stopping out so many traders who are definitely hitting selling opportunities within there. When the market starts to move to the upside like that, when many of them actually end up getting stopped out, they will also end up switching their biases. When they start chasing the buys, that's when the sells are going to hit them. So we could possibly also end up getting this. So we just need to be a bit patient. And of course, remember the red SNR at the top, bit of a long shot, but at least just make sure that you're also watching out for that. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for gold yesterday, the bus was to try to see whether we could get sells. So you can see the three regions right there that had been pointed out. And in the morning, price was here. So we wanted to see the market maybe attack this region right here. And hopefully we did get the market holding. We could have looked for the sells. If you end up looking at the finer detail of what happened within this region, the market went to the upside, came down. You can see that some sort of a pullback just came back in within this region, just shy of that area. And you can see that from there, the market came down. So something similar to what we've seen on silver. So I guess there's some really good correlation that's happening amongst these two, which is good. So for this one, these are the three areas we will be watching out for today. So right now, the market just seems to be breaching to the downside, which is also something similar to what we've seen on silver. But we do need to see either the market moving a bit lower, because remember, even if you do get the sells, let's say the market pulls back in within here, you'll still need to manage your trade within this area right here. You might not have sufficient room to actually move to the downside. But at least if you do actually wait for the market to move a bit lower on the pullback, if you do get the sell within there, then at least you'll have a bit more room to actually move to the downside, and you could get some proper risk to reward on this particular trade. So watch out for that. Also, so that you don't get caught up in a trap, you could find that the market could easily come back in, especially if it bounces off this region. There's a possibility it could come up. Well, it's not a guarantee that price is going to come back in all the way to within here. But there are a number of SNRs within these regions right here that the market could be coming back until. So you're better off at least waiting for that pullback to happen. Wherever the buyers do seem like they're running out of steam, then at least you could possibly try and see whether you could get yourself opportunities. Also watching out for the times like we keep on pointing out. So, I mean, 11, 4, and 5:30, you could possibly find some good trading opportunities there. So I guess that is pretty much it in terms of what the game plan is going to be looking like today. So I think we can end up looking at any questions that may be there real quick. So I see Ivy Wanyama there saying, good morning, team. Good morning back to you. I see Paul Kiari, good to see you as well, saying good morning. Good morning to you as well. I see Nyambu Mwas. You're saying, why use the lower time frames? Well, I don't know. You're asking as if it's wrong to use the lower time frames. Are you talking about the 15 minute? Well, the reason why we use the 15 minute is because in terms of, we're day traders. So we're trying to see whether we can get those trades within the sessions. So I keep talking about the London session and the US session. So we're session trading. So if you're session trading, then definitely you have to end up looking at the lower time frames, the 15 minutes, and for precision, the 3 minute, and maybe even all the way down to the 1 minute, so that you can get more detail on what's happening. But even based on the fact that we're looking on the 15 minute, the main story that we derive is from the 1 hour time frame. Because if you look at the levels, even if let's say it's on the 1 hour time frame, you will find that we're using the SNRs based on the 1 hour time frame. But you see on the 1 hour time frame, for the trades to actually end up getting ready, remember you need a whole hour for a candle to close. When you go down to the 15 minutes, within that hour, you have 4 candles, which means when you end up getting more detail, then that means that also getting the entries also ends up becoming much, much easier. So it's more or less like the 1 hour, but you're trading the 15 and using the 3 minute for the precision time frame. So there's nothing wrong with that, but I think maybe you're coming from maybe the swing trading background. So that's why you're wondering what we're doing here on the smaller time frames. So I see Motek Cyber, you're saying, good morning. How do traders accurately predict the direction of market during major news events or even before the data is released? Well, you could possibly end up using correlation, whereby you possibly end up looking at all the currency pairs side by side, and you have an idea of what maybe generally the markets could be doing. Like, we actually take the numbers. I know it's something we used to do when we used to do the intermediates, but it's also something that we also delved into during the AMP program. So, like, for example, we already know these are what the numbers possibly could be looking like. We know that we should be expecting strength on the USD, maybe weakness on the euro on the long term, on a bit more long-term view, because we take these numbers based on the 4-hour time frame. So even as the news events do end up coming out, there's already a possibility that you already know that when the news events come out, they're basically just going to be helping in terms of moving the market in a predetermined direction that you can already see on all the currency pairs that are already there. So I think correlation would possibly end up being your best bet, because when these news events do end up coming out, most of the time they actually end up cementing what the big boys are already trying to do in terms of pushing the market. And that's the reason why you find that sometimes even news events could come out even positive. You're expecting positive moves on the charts, but the markets actually end up going the other way. It's because the big boys, had you looked at correlation, they had already predetermined which direction they were going to take the market. So the news events were actually some sort of a catalyst, which they know that many retail traders are going to be jumping on board, and there's going to be a lot of liquidity that's going to be coming in. And of course, many people are just trying to interpret these numbers, based on the greens and the reds, and the big boys already have predetermined what they're going to be doing. So they know that there's going to be a lot of money that's going to be there. And you always need to remember that we're the small fish, and it comes here. The big boys, those are the sharks. So they know that when there's a news event, they know that at that point, the harvest is ripe. So I think if you end up using correlation, that should definitely give you a hint of which way the market will possibly end up going, even before the news events do end up coming out. So I hope that answers your question, but that's a really, really good question. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us. I want to thank you guys so much for making the time to be here with us. As always, we don't take your time for granted, but we do hope that you're also achieving as much as possible in terms of your trading. If you're not, keep fighting, but also feel free to reach out to us. Weissman said that it's good to learn from experience. And I know that most of you are experienced on the charts, but it's even wiser to learn from someone else's experience. So we also do have the experience and a lot of experience on the charts. So feel free to reach out to us and we will see how best we can end up helping you. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. So as always, may the peace be with you. God bless. Bye for now.